Welcome back. It was another power-packed day in India for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, joined by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Mr. Netanyahu addressed the Raisina dialogue in Delhi this evening, speaking on the subject of managing disruptive transitions as he is able to maintain peace because it is strong militarily. He described military, economic and political power as key to great power status. Mr. Netanyahu also pointed out that India and Israel faced a common threat of radical Islam and thus need to strengthen ties. The two countries want to innovate, are democracies, and have traditional values that bind peoples, he said.
Powerful traditions, ancient cultures of which we are so deeply proud, and yet these inquiring minds that reach out for the sky, reach out for new solutions to new problems all the time. And I think this characterizes our two peoples. But I believe, too, that there's one thing else that binds us together. And I think perhaps it is the most important of all. We have a special relationship. Among the many countries, we have a special relationship to democracies. Our way of life is being challenged. Most notably, the quest for modernity, the quest for innovation is being challenged by radical Islam and its terrorist offshoots from a variety of corners, and this can upset the international system. I think that one of the ways to overcome such a challenge is to strengthen the relationship between our two great democracies. The alliance of democracies, I think, is important to secure our common future.
Earlier, the Israeli Prime Minister visited the Taj Mahal. He and his wife Sarah posed for pictures at the iconic symbol of love. They were welcomed in Agra by Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. Netanyahu also took time off his packed schedule during his ongoing visit to India to chat with journalists accompanying him from Israel. Reports say that he spoke of India's strengths, its gigantic markets, and the many agreements being signed to boost trade, security and diplomatic ties with New Delhi. But he also touched a subject that may emerge as a point of discord in this relationship: the Islamic Republic of Iran. India has good relations with Iran, while Israel sees Iran as enemy number one. When asked whether he had broached the subject of Iran with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, here's what Mr. Netanyahu reportedly said, and I'm quoting, "We have spent many hours together, and much of that conversation focused on Iran, the danger it poses, and the aspiration for hegemony over the Muslim world and Muslims everywhere." Israel believes that a nuclear deal signed with Iran by Western powers will only allow that country to make nuclear weapons. Mr. Netanyahu wants that deal amended. He told Prime Minister Modi that Iran is trying to establish itself militarily through its proxy organization, the Hezbollah, in Syria, which is also Israel's hostile neighbor. So how does this equation really look? Let's take a closer look at the relationship between these three countries we're talking about: India, Iran and Israel. Let's see how each country views the other. India recognized both Israel and Iran in 1950. But while it established full diplomatic ties with Iran, it did not do so with Israel till 42 years later. That was 1992. During the Cold War that ended in 1991, Iran and Israel were allies of the United States, while India was on the other side, which means India was allied to the former Soviet Union. After some ups and downs over the decades, India today has good relations both with Israel and Iran. If it sounds complicated, we can tell you it is. Now let's see what binds India and Israel. They have a mutual foe, that's Islamist terror. They also have a growing trade and defense relationship. Israel came to India's help by providing equipment at very short notice during the Kargil war. India is Israel's biggest buyer of weapons. But India and Iran also have many common trade interests. Iran is the second largest supplier of crude oil to India, for instance, and India is one of the largest investors in Iran's oil and gas industry. India has built the Chabahar port in Iran and successfully opened a trading route that will bypass Pakistan altogether. And that's very important strategically for India. And that's not all. People-to-people relations between Iranians and Indians have flourished over hundreds of years. So despite political, cultural and religious differences, the question now is, will Iran prove to be a spoiler in the India-Israel relationship? Till some years ago, it would have seemed that way. After all, India has been steadfast in its support of many other countries hostile to Israel, such as Palestine, Saudi Arabia, even Syria. But not only have Tel Aviv and New Delhi forged ties despite these differences, many West Asian powers are now beginning to reach out to Israel, starting with Saudi Arabia. So we end where we began. Will Iran be the new Palestine, and will that be a deal breaker or a spoiler?